The steam from my tea had already gone cold, same as her tone. I told my daughter I was retiring next month, finally. After 42 years at Briarwick Elementary. Celina didn't smile. She just blinked, raised one perfect brow, and said, "So now you're just, what, useless?" The word landed colder than the mountain air leaking through her kitchen window. My hand clenched the mug too tight. The ceramic bit into my palm. Garrett didn't even glance up. He just kept scrolling like I wasn't even there. That was the moment I knew. They didn't see me as family anymore, only as expired value. Ban, where are you listening from tonight? Have you ever been called useless by someone you raised? Hit subscribe, because the part that came next was the last thing they expected. I used to think exhaustion had a smell, like dry paper, cold coffee, cheap perfume that fades by noon. For 42 years, I wore that scent like armor. I taught first grade at Briarwick Elementary. Same school, same chalkboard, same window that caught the sunset just right in October. I raised Celina on a teacher's paycheck and bulk rice. Her father left before she lost her baby teeth. Never sent a card, never sent a check. But I never let her feel the absence. I took extra lunch shifts, tutored after hours, sewed up her homecoming dress myself because she didn't like mall glitter. At night, I'd ice my knees in silence, then wake at 5 and do it all again. She made it into Princeton architecture. Full ride, but not full life coverage. I sold the old upright piano her grandma left us to pay for her dorm deposit. Celina cried when she found out. Back then, she still cried for me. We used to be close. She'd call on Sundays, send photos, ask what I was baking. But after she married Garrett, the calls slowed, then stopped. They moved into a sleek, glass-cold apartment in Boston, a city I only saw in Hallmark movies. She said they were still adjusting. So I adjusted too. I stopped expecting. But when she called last year and said, "Once you retire, we want you nearby," I believed her. I even sold my last gold necklace my wedding band repurposed into a thin chain just to buy the plane ticket. I packed one suitcase, left the porch light on in case I came back. I thought I'd be helping with the baby. I thought I'd be needed. But standing in that high-rise kitchen, hands shaking around a chipped mug, I understood something else. I'd made her life easier by disappearing from mine. And now they expected me to keep vanishing, just quieter this time. The Airbnb smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh drywall. Not home, not even close. But I told myself just a few nights. Celina said the nursery wasn't ready yet. I believed her. She used to tell me everything. When her bike got stolen, when she had her first kiss behind the bleachers. Even when she flunked sophomore calculus, she still called me crying at 2 a.m. So I believed her when she said, "You'll move in once we finish painting." That Friday, I rolled my suitcase to their building, a luxury tower with a concierge who barely glanced at me. I pressed the buzzer, no answer. Again, nothing. I called straight to voicemail, then the ding of a message. "Sorry, Mom, the spare room's still under construction. Garrett says maybe next week." I stared at the screen. Not our decision. Not we. Garrett says. The words stung more than the winter wind that rushed through the lobby doors. I stood there clutching the handle of my suitcase. A woman walked past with a stroller. The baby giggled. From somewhere upstairs, a kettle whistled. Warmth, domestic noise, families living. But not mine. Mine had turned cold and locked. I didn't buzz again. I didn't reply. I just dragged my suitcase back into the street wheels, rattling over frozen pavement. I could still hear Celina's voice in my head. "So now you're just, what, useless?" Buddy, she'd changed the locks. But I'd already felt the door close long before I touched it. I chose a quiet cafe on Beacon Street. Celina liked the soup there in college. She arrived 10 minutes late. Garrett came too. Uninvited, but unsurprising. They sat across from me, all angles and leather. I ordered tea. She got sparkling water. Garrett didn't order anything, just checked his watch twice. "I thought we could talk," I began. "About the move." Celina forced a smile. "The timing's just tricky." Garrett leaned forward. "We're not saying no, just things are tight." "Tight," I echoed. "You live in a $4,000 a month apartment." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "We have expenses, baby on the way, maternity leave, rent. You know how it is." No, I didn't. I'd raised a child on canned beans and borrowed winter coats. Tight was different back then. Celina sipped her water. "If you could help a little with rent, maybe. $1 to $200 a month." My breath caught. I thought I was coming to help. To be with the baby. Garrett shrugged. "You'd still be helping. Just in a way that works for all of us." Celina added, "You still have the house in Briarwick, right? You could rent it out." I looked at her. The daughter I raised with bedtime stories and secondhand books. She was gone. What sat across from me now was a woman doing math. "You want me," I said slowly, "to sell my past." to afford a room in your future. Neither of them spoke. A baby cried somewhere behind us. The smell of buttered bread drifted from the kitchen. I suddenly felt old, tired, unwanted. I folded my napkin with steady fingers. "Thank you for lunch," I said. They didn't stop me as I left. Not even when I forgot to finish my tea. Celina invited me to dinner that weekend. Just a few friends, casual. I said yes. I still wanted to believe I belonged. Their apartment looked like a catalog. Marble counters, Edison bulbs, fake warmth. I brought a bottle of wine from the local shop. It sat unopened the whole evening. Everyone else drank Chardonnay. When they introduced themselves, they said things like, "I'm with a firm," or "I consult in sustainability strategy." When it came to me, Celina waved her hand and said, "This is my mom. She used to teach elementary. She's retired now, figuring out what comes next." The words hung awkwardly in the air. Someone laughed, a soft, polite, dismissive kind of laugh. I smiled, the kind that hides the sting in your throat. Over dinner, I mostly listened. Stories about promotions, real estate, baby name debates. No one asked me anything. No one even looked my way. After dessert, I excused myself. Needed a breath, a moment, a bathroom. The hallway outside their powder room was dim but quiet. That's when I heard Garrett. He wasn't whispering. "Odessa's sweet, but she's just dead weight now. Celina's being too soft about it." Another voice, someone I didn't recognize, grunted in agreement. I didn't move, not at first. Just stood there, my back pressed to the wall, hand trembling on my purse strap. I looked down. My shoes were dusty. My dress was too plain. I suddenly felt like a ghost, polite, invisible, unnecessary. When I returned to the table, no one noticed I'd left. The leftover cake had already been cleared. I sat down anyway and smiled, because that's what the obsolete do. We stay quiet until the quiet turns into power. 3 days after the dinner, the email came. Subject line, "Some options to consider." The heart felt like a slap. I clicked. Inside, just one paragraph. "Hi Mom, Garrett and I talked, and we think this might be a more comfortable solution for everyone. We found a few nice senior living communities nearby. Some even offer part-time work programs if you want to stay active." Beneath the text, 3 links: budget options, rooms with shared bathrooms, group dining, game nights. I read it 3 times. Nowhere in it was the word home, nowhere family. Just programs, just solutions. I sat at the edge of the bed in my rented room. A kettle hissed in the tiny kitchenette. Outside, snow had started to fall, soft, steady. I'd taught Celina how to make snow angels in Briarwick. She used to giggle so loud the neighbors peeked through their curtains. I clicked the email shut. Didn't respond. Didn't need to. She'd spoken loud enough. I packed my things, the few I had left. 1 coat, 3 blouses, a scarf she once bought me. Still had the tag on. I folded everything neatly into my suitcase. No tears, no drama. Just silence, heavy as snow. I left a note for the Airbnb host, tipped generously. Then I walked out into the Boston wind. The cold didn't sting anymore. It matched me now. They didn't need a mother, and I no longer needed to ask why. The Greyhound bus rattled through snowy switchbacks. I sat in the back, no one beside me. The heater wheezed. The window fogged with each breath I let go. In my coat pocket I found it, a sealed envelope, edges softened by time. I had kept it hidden for 12 years, unopened, untouched, unwanted. Clara Reese. She'd been my neighbor, then my friend, then something quieter, deeper. Cancer took her fast, but before it did, she handed me that envelope and said, "Don't open this until you're done giving to everyone but yourself." I thought I was never going to open it. I thought I'd never stop giving. But now I had nothing left to give. I tore the flap. Inside, a letter in her elegant script, and a legal document. A deed. Signed, witness, notarized. The Reese estate, 27 acres of forest-lined land above Briarwick. Cabin, garden, greenhouse, lake access. And a trust fund, 5.8 million. Clara had no children, no heirs. She chose me. Back then, I kept teaching, kept saving, kept sacrificing. Because I thought love meant not choosing yourself. But sitting on that bus, fingers shaking, heart flat, I realized something. If they didn't need my presence, they sure as hell didn't deserve my absence to be cheap. And it was time to open the gates. I arrived in Briarwick just before dawn. No one noticed the taxi. No one expected me back. The sky was still gray, that soft, waiting kind of gray. I didn't go home. Not to the little yellow house on Willow Bend. That was never really mine. It was survival. I went straight to Reese Hill, Clara's land, now mine. I stood at the gate, keys in hand. They still worked. The iron creaked open like a secret being remembered. The cabin had sat quiet for years, dust in corners, cobwebs lacing the eaves. But the bones were strong. Old wood, stone hearth, windows facing east toward the lake. It needed work, but so did I. I hired local. Young men who once threw snowballs at my mailbox, now laying tile hauling lumber. They didn't recognize me. That suited me fine. We kept it quiet, no social media, no permits posted, just word of mouth and full payment in cash. I rewired the whole house, updated the furnace, planted rosemary along the porch rail. The upstairs loft became a library, the sunroom my watercolor space. I built myself a little bench by the kitchen window. Facing west, sunsets would bleed through that glass like fire over still water. Each morning I made tea. Loose-leaf jasmine, not the cheap bags I once saved for years. I'd wrap my shawl, step out onto the porch, and breathe. Snow melted in the tree branches, birdsong returned. Briarwick moved on, and for the first time in decades, so did I. No one knew who owned the new estate on the hill. They whispered. Some investor from Denver. Divorcee with money. That house finally sold. Let them wonder. Let them write stories. Because mine was still being sharpened. Spring came late that year, but when it did, it came in lilac. I planted 20 bushes along the driveway, watched them bloom like tiny fists unclenching. The woman at the florist called me ma'am and asked if I was new to town. I just smiled. My days took on rhythm. Tea at 6, reading by 7, painting at noon, evenings in the garden hands deep in earth. I joined a workshop at the library, journaling for women over 60. We didn't write much. We talked about being erased, about grown children who call when they want something and vanish when they don't. We laughed. We cried. We called it healing. Meanwhile, Celina resurfaced digitally. First it was subtle, a post on Instagram, a black and white sonogram, captioned, "Some people run when family needs them most." I didn't respond. Then came the baby registry, the public wish list, Garrett's name attached. A week later, an email from him, subject line checking in, and a favor. The message, they were struggling. Would I be willing to help just a little with a short-term loan? I deleted it. No reply, no guilt. 2 days later, I saw it. Someone forwarded me a screenshot. Celina had posted to a parenting group, "My mother abandoned us when we needed her most. Now we're drowning in hospital bills. She lives somewhere in the mountains, pretending we don't exist." That's when I stopped brewing tea. I started writing. The local paper had a column, Letters from Briarwick, mostly notes about potholes and missing cats. Mine was different. I signed it OM, retired teacher, Briarwick native. I wrote, "There's a kind of silence that isn't absence. It's protection. Protection from being drained by those who only know how to take." I gave my entire life to someone, raised her with nothing but love and sacrifice. But when I stopped giving, she called me useless. So I left, not out of spite, out of self-respect. And for the first time in my life, I am blooming. They published it on a Sunday. By Tuesday, it hit Reddit. Our true off my chest, our insane parents, our mother-daughter drama. Some called me heartless, some called me heroic. I didn't care. I just sat on my porch, lilacs swaying beside me, watching the sun go down on every lie they ever told about me. And I whispered, "Let them talk. They don't know the half of it." But soon they would. They came on a Wednesday, unannounced. A black SUV too shiny for Briarwick dust pulled up to the edge of my gravel drive. I watched from the upstairs window. Celina stepped out first, then Garrett. She wore white, always white, like innocence could be worn over malice. He scanned the property like a man doing math. They rang the bell at the gate. I didn't answer. They rang again. Then the shouting started. "Mom, I know you're in there." I stayed behind the curtain, hands steady, heart calm. Garrett's voice cut next. "You can't just disappear. This is insane," Celina shouted. "Why didn't you tell us you had money? We thought you were struggling." That word again, struggling. I had spent decades surviving so they could thrive. And now, because I wasn't visibly starving, I was suddenly deceptive. I turned on the porch intercom, spoke just once. "You didn't ask." There was a pause. Then Garrett, harsher now. "You owe us an explanation." I replied, "I don't owe you anything." Then I cut the feed. They banged on the gate. Celina screamed, "You're punishing us, your family." A neighbor across the road filmed the whole thing. He uploaded it that night. Daughter begs millionaire mom for help after calling her useless. It went viral by morning. The comment section burned. "She doesn't want a mother, she wants a bank account. My mom died with nothing. You had this," and threw it away. Some were cruel, most understood. 3 days later, an envelope arrived by courier. Legal stationery. Letterhead from a firm in Boston. It wasn't a thank you. It wasn't an apology. It was a request for preliminary estate clarification. Garrett had contacted a lawyer. He wanted to know if Clara Reese's inheritance could be contested, if Odessa's assets were subject to equitable division under implied family partnership. I almost laughed. Instead, I forwarded the letter to my attorney in Denver. Her name was Judith. She was sharp, unshakable, and wore earrings shaped like daggers. Judith drafted a response. It was one line. Your inquiry is without standing or merit. Kindly cease further communication. I signed it, sealed it, sent it back. Then I went to my garden and trimmed the lavender. The shears felt good in my hands. That night, Celina called. First time in 5 months. Voicemail. Mom, please, this is getting out of control. People at my firm are talking. Garrett says we should sue, but I didn't want it to go this far. Please call me. I didn't. I poured myself a glass of red, sat in the reading chair Clara once used. The phone buzzed again. Another voicemail, this time quieter. You embarrassed us. You're ruining our reputation. No, I miss you. No, are you okay? Just damage control. The next day, someone tagged me in a Reddit thread. Raytie Eta for cutting off my daughter after she called me useless, and trying to sue me once she found out I was rich. The upvotes flooded in. I didn't post it, someone else had, but the world responded. NTA, that's not a mother-daughter rift. That's an extraction economy. Karma wears purple and drinks tea on a porch now. The day she changed the locks, she forfeited the keys. I closed my laptop, stepped outside. The breeze smelled like pine and morning rain. My wind chimes whispered, and for the first time in decades, I felt no need to explain myself. Not to them, not to anyone. Sometimes justice doesn't come loud. Sometimes it comes in lavender. 1 year later, I still wake at 6. Still drink my jasmine tea while the lake blushes in the morning light. But I don't flinch at quiet anymore. I welcome it. The lavender bloomed again this spring. Thicker, wilder. Like something that refused to die just because someone else stopped tending it. I started a little club. Tea on Thursdays. We call it "In Table for One, Set for Two." We don't ask each other what happened. We just pour and breathe. Some cry, some laugh, some just sit in silence, grateful to not be erased. Each week a new face. Each week a new kind of healing. Celina sends postcards now. Photos of a boy with sandy hair and round cheeks. No return address, no apology. Just one sentence last week. He's walking now. I pinned it beside my pantry, next to the one that said, his first word was light. I haven't met him. I might not, but I wish him warmth and a world where no one measures love by what it costs them. Because I didn't disappear, I just stopped begging to be seen. Stopped folding myself to fit their margins. Stopped calling sacrifice a requirement. I didn't get revenge. I got a view, and I like it here. What about you? Has someone ever called you useless after all you gave? Drop your story in the comments. Tell Reddit what they never wanted to hear. And if you stayed to the end, click subscribe, because this isn't the last story from Briarwick Hill.